Good morning. Good morning. I hope you're having an amazing, wonderful weekend. My name is Rose Stein. Welcome to this incredible group. Ladies, let's button those jeans again. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I have a master's degree in health education, specializing in nutrition. And I have been helping women and men, but mostly women, for a really long time break free of their subconscious habits and patterns of thinking so that they can lose weight. Yes, of course, we have to talk about food sometimes, and we have Foodie Friday, which is a lot of fun. And of course, how to navigate and what to eat and how to energize the body is all really important. But the best diet in the world is the one that you're actually willing to stick to. And it's not some fancy thing out there. Our willingness to stick to any kind of health plan for ourselves starts with our thinking. It starts with our thinking, and it moves into emotions and feelings, which move then into our actions in our life. And then we end up with the results that we've ended up with. But there are 4 stages of change that understanding these stages is going to be extremely helpful in your weight loss journey. I know that it was extremely helpful in mine and my clients, and I want to share that with you now. A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis and hypnotherapy in the subconscious mind, and it's some kind of mystery. Well, I'm here to demystify all of that for you so that you can really understand what is going on and make intentional, conscious, helpful choices for yourself that work with all parts of yourself, right? The part that wants to eat the good food and lose the weight and feel good and be healthy, and the part that's like, I don't really give a shit. I just want to have what I have, what I want it, and I don't care because it feels good and it tastes good and it's too freaking hard. Yes, both of those parts live in every single one of us. And how do we move these two together so that they can work together so that we can enjoy our life and look and feel good? Okay, so let's get into it. So the first general gist and understanding, and of course, like any map or any understanding or any method, that's all that it is. It's a method. It's an understanding that can help us solidify our foundation and what it is that we're doing and help us move forward. So it's not the end all be all. So we're going to simplify it a little bit. But the basic idea is that we have our mind, right? This is our big old brain. We've got our body down here. And the body is actually also going to represent our actions, our behaviors, right? What our physical body is actually doing in the world. And we'll give our little body some legs. Super cute. Okay, so in terms of our consciousness, our attitudes, our beliefs, our habits, our patterns, so most of that is subconscious. Some people call it unconscious. That's a whole nother lesson where we'll talk about kind of the difference between that and the similarities between that. I like to call it subconscious because it's kind of like just underneath the surface. It isn't totally unconscious. We're not like in a coma, although sometimes it can feel like that, but it's typically our habits, our patterns, our behaviors, our belief systems that are just underneath the surface. So I'm going to call this subconscious. And in case you have never been a teacher and been like up at a board teaching a lesson, it is the bizarrest thing. Like my writing gets weird and I can't spell and I'll be like talking about weird stuff. So if that's happening, just go with it, get the gist of it. This is going to help you. Okay, so our subconscious, and then up here, we have our conscious. There we go. Beautiful. Our conscious mind. So that they say is like 5 to 10% of our brain's even capability. This is our ability to see and taste and touch and feel and smell and like all of our senses, right? It's how we interact with the outside world is our consciousness. Pretty awesome. Okay. So the first stage, and we're talking about specifically the weight loss journey, but obviously this can kind of penetrate into all of our experiences of life. But the first stage is we are subconsciously incompetent. Right? So we're incompetent, but we're not even really sure what it is that we are doing wrong, right? It's kind of just underneath the surface. Now, it's not totally underneath the surface because typically there are signs and signals in the world, right? Our body is letting us know. Maybe we've been diagnosed with pre-diabetes or diabetes, or we got high blood pressure or cholesterol, or our clothes are continuing to not really fit well. We don't really have a lot of energy. We're sick all the time. There's aches and pains in the body. There's on and on and on and on. There's lots of opportunities and lots of ways, if we kind of look back and put the pieces together, when we become conscious of what actually happens and the dynamic interrelationship of what we eat and what we think and how we feel and how we act, we can look back and put those pieces together and go, oh my God, my body, my subconscious was kind of yelling to me a lot over my life, and I didn't even really realize it. So if we are subconsciously incompetent, we don't even really know what we're doing. We don't know, we have no idea that the interrelationship between food and mind and body. So then that's kind of stage one. Stage one is just subconsciously incompetent, we don't even know. Stage two is really where a lot of the power comes into. It can be one of the most frustrating places to be, because what happens is now we become consciously incompetent. That is a very frustrating place to be. Like there's that saying, there's ignorance and bliss. That's what they're talking about. If you're subconsciously incompetent, you're not even really sure what's going on. You have no access to that, and you kind of don't really care. Like, of course, you wish things were different, but you had no idea. Now, when you become consciously incompetent, that's when you actually kind of wake up. The doctor tells you, hey, you know what? Now you're on this medication. You've got these sorts of, diseases. Like there's some pain point that kind of like punches you in the face. Maybe your clothes don't fit. Maybe you finally realize that you've been stressing out over your body for decades, right? Not just years, but it's been now decades. And you're getting to a point. One of the points for me, and there was many of them, one of the points for me was my son looking at me as I was like in the middle of a binge going, what are you doing? Right? It was like that. It was, in AA, I call that a moment of clarity, where like all of a sudden you wake up from your subconscious just going on and you become conscious and aware of what it is that you're doing and that it's not working. This is a really great place to be, because this is where you can learn. This is where you're open to new ideas. This is when you start searching out a health coach or a doctor. You start reading the books. You start, asking so-and-so who lost 100 pounds, like, how did you do it? Right? You start researching, like, what is keto and do I want that? And what's this diet and what's that diet? And what about Weight Watchers? Like, you start to be open to different ideas. Do I really need to go gluten-free? Maybe I need to take a test. Like, the doors start to open of curiosity. This is a great place to be, but it's very uncomfortable because you're aware of how incompetent you are. You're aware of how much you don't know, right? Just enough to make you a little bit crazy. But what's great about that is that once you start on that process, it's like a snowball, just like anything else, right? Ignorance is not bliss anymore in this time, and you can't really go back to not knowing. You can't go back. You can try and pretend, but then you got to end up like eating and drinking and smoking and doing all kinds of other crazy stuff, trying to forget what you know. But now you know, so you know. All right. So what happens is that then we get some help. We do this diet. Maybe it works, right? Because they do. If we stick to anything, it works. We lose some weight. We start to feel better. Our health conditions start to subside, and we're like, okay, this is awesome. Like, I'm all good. But sometimes there's a little twist. So let me go a little bit further. So again, the first stage is subconscious incompetence, subconsciously incompetent. Then we have some kind of awakening, right? Some kind of slap in the face usually, or some kind of moment of clarity where we become consciously incompetent. Then we go and we search out some help, some support, we get some accountability, we try a plan, we try this plan, we try that plan. And then we become consciously competent. This is a really nice place to be in. We are aware of what we're doing. We have some semblance of, it feels like control, right? Because we have an ability to take our knowledge and put it into action, and that moves into the body, right? We become consciously competent. Our body is reacting and responding the way that we want it to, right? Because consciously competent means you are intentional. You know what it is that you need to be doing. This is when you are like, you're in your plan and you're doing your thing. And if you plan and you prep and you prepare, then like all is good. All is good, but it takes attention, right? It takes intention every single day. And when life happens and throws you a curveball, someone gets sick, you lose a job, you have to move, the house burns down, COVID happens, like whatever. All of a sudden, all of our energy and conscious attention, because you can only actually focus and consciously do anything. It's about 7 plus or minus 2 things at any one time. We don't have a lot of conscious control. It's, again, only about 5 to 10% of our brain. So what happens here is that we're on a roll, life happens, and we slip back into our subconscious habits and patterns and beliefs. And if we understand this, then we don't beat ourselves up over it. But many women, and I'm going to bet that probably most of you watching this might be in this category, because it's totally, it's natural, right? It's normal. We move back into our subconscious habits and patterns, but we still have the awareness. So it becomes pretty painful. It becomes very uncomfortable to watch ourselves behaving in a way that we don't want to behave in, but we have too much stress, too much going on, too much responsibility, too much to really go back to being consciously intentional, consciously competent with our health and fitness goals, right? And then we let those slide because there's all these other things to deal with. We go back into our unconscious, subconscious habits and patterns, and our body is playing that out in those habits and patterns from these beliefs. Oh, and it can be so frustrating. And then we start to beat ourselves up over it, right? Because we know better. Well, I should be doing this. I should be. We start to judge ourselves. And that never is a good thing, ladies. Not ever frickin' once is that a good method, is to beat ourselves up, to judge ourselves, and then to try and get back into control, this desperate control that if I just did this thing in this little tiny box, then I would feel okay again. And this is where hypnotherapy, this is where a health coach, this is where coaching, this is where really getting into our subconscious habits, patterns, and beliefs is so essential to long-term health and vitality, especially for those of us that have suffered with our weight, with our body image, with food for so freaking long that our subconscious habits and patterns are so freaking mean. That inner itty bitty shitty committee on the inside that's trying to get back control can be so mean. It's so desperate to not be subconsciously incompetent ever again. Very powerful. So what happens when we add a little bit of compassion into here, when we realize that we can only do so much, when we begin to create habits and patterns and behaviors that work with the subconscious mind? Because once you understand how it works, it makes it so much freaking easier. Let me give you an example. One of my clients, she had, been over 200 pounds for most of her life, since about 6th grade. And she was in this process of, figuring all of this stuff out and making changes. And I keep my suggestions about our food and our plan and what we do are very simple, and they're very systematic, I guess is probably not the best word, but it is intentional to work with the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind loves patterns. It loves habits. It loves to take something that you do over and over and over and over again and absorb it. So this line right here, this is our critical factor. This is basically our bullshit meter. So information from the outside world always gets filtered through the conscious mind. The conscious mind, if something is consistent and repetitive, and there's no judgment on it being helpful, It's just the consistent and repetitive. It will eventually move past the critical factor, and your brain will say, okay, this is something that we do over and over and over again. I don't need to think about it consciously anymore. Subconscious, you can take it on. I don't need to waste precious brain space. Because remember, we only have the ability to really consciously do about 7 plus or minus 2 things at any one time, right? So it makes sense that there's a lot of information that just needs to go subconscious. Kind of like if you wake up in the morning and you drive to work at the same time, the same way every single day, you don't have to consciously think about that anymore. 10 years go by, you get a new job, you're going to automatically, for a few months, I know because I did this a few times, you're going to automatically go into autopilot and end up at your other job and go, wait, what am I doing? Where am I? That is your subconscious taking over repetitive actions. So you end up doing things that you don't want to do automatically. This is how we end up with the quote, negative, destructive, unhealthy kind of habits and patterns and beliefs, is because we practice them and practice them and practice them so much that when we go unconscious, or we have a whole bunch of stress or whatever, those old habits and patterns come back up. So what happened is, after about a year of us working together and her losing about 75 pounds, and really becoming consistent. I mean, of course, there's ups and downs, and there's lots of things to figure out. But what happened is that there was a day that she had an emergency in her family and had to just get up and go. And it was so interesting because she was like, I can't believe it, Rose. Like, I got up, I didn't even brush my hair or brush my teeth, right? Because I was just in the zone. Like, I need to go, I need to help my family member. And like, this needs to happen right now. I don't have another time to do it. She was like, but I like automatically went into the kitchen and put my lunch together and left. Like, that habit of self-care, when we do it and we just keep it simple and we do it the same-ish way every day, and we just keep it simple, and we just remind ourselves that we're building habits and patterns of behavior that work for us. She did that little bit of self-care for this body. And you know that when you're under stress, taking care of the body and the mind and feeding it properly is like a freaking game changer. Brushing your teeth, you can do that later. Brushing your hair, you can do that later. But when you take care of your body, that little act of self-care is freaking profound. It is profound. I was like, I'm so excited. I'm like, yes, you're getting what I'm talking about. You're getting it. And the cool thing is, like, you all get it. Like, this is just the way that the brain works. I'm just explaining maybe in a different way than you have heard before, maybe understanding why diets just to lose weight don't freaking work. They don't work because you never become subconsciously competent, which is what you want. That was what was happened when she just grabbed her lunch and took off, even under a stressful moment. She was now subconsciously competent. Freaking amazing. That's what you want. You want it to be so natural, so in tune with your own body and your own mind, and so just what you naturally do, such a habit. You don't have to freaking think about it all the time anymore. And if you're just doing a diet to lose weight, you never become subconsciously competent. And then you end up in that cycle over and over and over again. So my suggestion to you is to figure out a way. Obviously, I can more than happy to share that with you as a health coach, right? This is exactly what I do, is help people go from subconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent to consciously competent to subconsciously competent. And then bam, our body just reacts and responds with what it's been given. It's so beautiful. Okay. Oh, I love you so much. And I know that you might want to watch this back over a couple of times because it's super profound and very helpful, and exactly why making the changes that are sustainable today, next month, next year, in 5 years, in 10 years. It's going to help you make this process easy and simple. And then when it's easy and simple, it's freaking fun. And then you get to be that annoying person going, weight loss is fun. Everyone join my group, because it can be. Gosh darn, it doesn't have to be so hard. All right. I love you so much. I hope you're having an amazing, wonderful Sunday. As always, reach out to me. Leave a comment below, reach out to me in my DMs, get on my schedule, and let's talk about how we can move you quicker through this process so that you can get the results that you're looking for, feeling freaking fantastic. All right. I love you so much. See you later.